All right, and welcome back. Continuing to work on the horizontal stabilizer. As you can see, I've gotten the what I'll call the rib assembly put together in the center part of the horizontal stabilizer, and I'm attaching it to the forward spar here, along with the nose ribs on the forward end of the spar. Um, Going through eventually the overall idea in this video is going to be countersinking the spar and starting to attach all of the ribs to the forward spar for the horizontal stabilizer. One of the things I found doing this process here, where I'm countersinking the flanges on the spar, is that I kind of had to over countersink. Because you start out, you countersink, you use a rivet to gauge if it's too deep, not deep enough, or just right. And I had countersunk everything to where the head of the rivets were flush with the top of the spar. Well, when I went to put the frame inside of the skins so that I can start to rivet the skins to the frame, it wouldn't sit flat. The skins wouldn't sit inside of the countersunk holes, and I clecoed just about every hole. In fact, I think every hole was clecoed, and it still would not sit correctly. So you may end up having to, what I ended up having to do was countersink just a little bit more than I normally would, so that the rivet, when I tested, was just under the surface of the spar. Not drastic, but just that you could feel just a slight ridge on the spar over the top of the machine head of the rivet. And so it took me a few tries, and eventually, after about the third time of putting the frame in, clecoing every hole, and taking it back out and putting it back in again, after about the third time, I finally got it in to where about 95% of the skins sat exactly flush. And there was a few spots where they still just could not get the skins to sit completely flush. So I wasn't ecstatic, but it wasn't enough of a gap. I mean, we're talking maybe the thickness of a piece of paper gap, and so it just, like I said, I clecoed every hole, and then took the one cleco that I was riveting out, and then riveted it. So at no time was there any gaps or any space between where a rivet was and where the next cleco was, and just did my best to try to hold the skins as tight as I could against the frame while I was riveting. So that's just something you may run into, and I'm not sure, maybe the flange angles weren't quite exactly where they were supposed to be. I just went out and bought a digital angle finder, for lack of a better term, to help me. There's a few steps where it actually calls out to verify the angles of the flanges on a couple of spars on the elevator. So that's what I use from now on, just to verify, but it worked, so I'm pleased with the end result. It was just a lot of work to get it to where I wanted it. So anyway, here I am attaching the rest of the inner ribs to the forward assembly, or forward spar, and to the spar assembly there. As I'd mentioned in a previous video, the ribs in the middle section of the forward or the horizontal stabilizer, these middle ribs are slightly different than the ribs that go external to these. And so you just make sure you got the right ones and attach them to the forward spar there, and then to the cross member there of the assembly, the cap. And it just, obviously, for added strength on the interior portion of the horizontal stabilizer. And so the rest of this, you go through and just put on the ribs as you go. And then you have the forward nose ribs that go in the forward end of the spar. You just make sure everything matches up, and it was a pretty easy process. The ribs were not too difficult. Didn't require a whole lot of fluting. That's where you take and you put a crease in the flange to straighten out the rib. for the most part, they were all pretty good. Didn't have a whole lot of trouble with those. You don't want to over flute, I guess, because it can cause issues with the holes where they match up, and how the dimples will set in if you flute too closely to the holes on the ribs, obviously. So you just go through as you need, get the ribs straight. You set it down on a smooth surface like the table there, and just make sure it sits flat. So then the rest of this is just going through and putting the rivets in and getting everything assembled. The skins are pre-formed, and those, you see the wood pieces that are sitting in the background right by the drill press on the floor there. You create those from the ribs. You basically you cleco the mid rib and a nose rib together, and then trace the outline of that onto a piece of wood, and then cut it out, and you make a stand out of it. So it you'll see that in the next video or two. But you put the skins in there, and then you drop the frame down into the skins, and then you start attaching everything. And it's like I said, the horizontal stabilizer didn't take me a whole lot of time, comparatively speaking. It was actually pretty quick to assemble. So anyway, it's coming along real nice. As I said in the previous video, I've got the horizontal stabilizer complete by the time I'm at the time of editing this video, and I'm moved on to the elevators, and those are coming along nicely. They're a little more complicated, especially the trim tab portion. The left elevator's got a little more to it, but overall it's a quick process. I'm starting to pick up a little speed as I'm getting used to the process and how you go about doing different portions of it. And so it's been a fun project so far, and I estimate sometime between April and June I should have this finished. Unfortunately, I think that means that I will not have a project to work on for a couple months. I'm trying to cash flow this entire project. I don't want to take out loans to buy the kits, and so I got to set up some money on the side as I go along. But also the next kit, the wings, have a 8-week lead time to them. So even by the time I order them, it's still almost 2 months before I actually get it in the mail. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going to go ahead and let this one roll out here. Like I said, the next video should be starting to drop the frame into the skins, and we'll see how that goes. All right, we'll see you next time around.